Renting versus owning. I get this question quite often. And so we're going to explore these new statistics that are coming out this year on renting versus owning. And surprisingly, or unsurprisingly for a lot of us, renting is getting a lot cheaper than buying a house with the interest rates where they're at. Okay. So if you're trying to finance and purchase your first home, second home, third home, you haven't built up enough equity to pay cash for a home yet, like the vast majority of people, well, then renting right now is significantly cheaper, especially in these major metropolitan areas. Austin, Texas takes the cake with a 136% difference between renting versus buying a house. Rents on average are down. I got a couple of cities where rents are up. Whereas the cost of buying has rocketed because of those higher interest rates. So Austin, San Francisco, Columbus, Sacramento, Los Angeles, look, all these major metropolises that are out there, it's cheaper to rent right now. And I don't have a problem with renting as long as it's short term. It's not the life plan of renting for the rest of your life. A lot of people don't have to commute to work anymore. They can work from anywhere. And so renting is becoming more and more popular because of things like that. And that sounds neat and wonderful and all, but we got to look at the other side of this, the inflation side of this. So when we look at overall rents, they're down, but when we see inflation like this, if milk went up by 23%, it doesn't blow out your budget. But when you see a major cost in your expenses go up by 23%, that's what really starts hurting over time. And that's what we have to be careful with. Okay. So when we look at inflation of rent, it goes through fits. But on average, since 1980, the average annual increase in rent has been over 8%. And I see a lot of fours and twos and threes, but that's when inflation was fairly benign. When we start seeing inflation and rental rates start going up, they've jumped significantly since the last time I rented. I haven't rented for over 2 decades. That's pretty amazing. So I think through all this and I look at the cost of renting. And so somebody with the plan of always renting is always going to be exposed to these higher prices of rent. And that's scary in the long term. It's not a big deal in the short term, but it is something we have to worry about. On the flip side of that, look at the equity you build up in your home. So not only are you paying down a mortgage, you have a flat mortgage payment that doesn't increase to inflation in the future, but you have a house value that increases in the future. And that's the big game changer for people. Bite the bullet, pay a little more for a house because you have 2 things working to your advantage when it comes to owning real estate versus renting. In the long run, that's the big difference maker right there. You have locked in your rent and you don't have to worry about inflation increasing the cost that you have to pay for that home. And then on the backside, that equity gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And there you wake up later in life and realize you own your house free and clear. And now when you go buy a house, you're selling one and buying another, and you're paying cash for houses. And these interest rates then don't bother you either. So we have to think about these things in the bigger picture versus just the right here, right now, what feels good, what is good. It's kind of like taxation. If you're only worried about paying the least amount today, you might end up paying a whole bunch extra later by not being proactive. So be careful about this idea of renting, and renting is cheaper than buying. It might be right now, but in the long run, owning a home is always the goal, especially before you head off into retirement. Make decisions today without thought of tomorrow deprives you of your better future. I don't know if I'm quoting somebody on that. So if I am, it came out of my head when I was writing this, and I thought that made a lot of sense. Think about that. Making decisions today without thought of tomorrow deprives you of a better future. We have to think about our future. We have to think about the long run side of this. Building that equity in real estate helps shelter you from inflation. It ensures that shelter over your head for the rest of your life. Okay, so please think about this in the bigger picture. Don't get stuck in the right here and right now. And for all you fortunate people that can work from anywhere and you like moving around, that's wonderful. I think it's a fun, exciting future. But the reality is equity in real estate is going to be very important for the long run of your future. So thinking through how to solve that problem would be great. So if we can help in any way, always love discussions, always love questions. Send me questions. I can create videos out of them. Shoot us an email. Give us a call if I can help in any way. Certainly subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Real estate versus renting. I'm always going to be a fan of purchasing, even in interest rates like today. If you want to rent for a little while to see if interest rates go down, I'm fine with that. Because short-term renting right now monetarily is better in most major cities. But in the long run, we should always be looking at purchasing and finding our opportunity. If you're renting right now, be saving for your down payment on your purchase. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next time.